The last time you left your house for more than a few days, your birds noticed before you even closed the door. Not when the feeder ran empty, not when the yard went quiet. Before that. They noticed when the rhythm of your morning broke. The kitchen light that did not turn on at the usual hour. The back door that did not open at the usual time. The shape of you that did not appear at the window where it always appears. And the moment they registered the absence, something began to happen in your yard that you have never seen, because by definition, you were not there to see it. What your birds do when you are gone is not random. It is not survival on autopilot. It is a precise sequence of behaviors built around your specific absence, and the longer you stay away, the more revealing that sequence becomes. There are birds in your yard right now who can tell you have left for the day versus left for the week. There are birds who remember not just your face, but the exact times you appear. And there are birds who, after you have been gone long enough, will adjust their entire territory around the assumption that you are not coming back. Welcome back to Backyard Bird Mind. Today, we are going to walk through exactly what happens in your yard during the hours and days you are away. You will learn what they do in the first morning without you, how their visit pattern shifts on day 2 and day 3, what the research from Cornell and the University of Washington has revealed about how they remember you, what happens when your absence stretches into a week or more, and finally, what they actually recognize the moment you return. Stay until the very end. Because the last thing we cover is the reason some birds will still wait for a specific person years after that person has stopped coming, and once you understand it, you will never look at the chickadee at your window the same way again. Point 1. The first morning you are not there. The birds in your yard do not have clocks. What they have is something more precise. They have you. Your routine has become part of their internal map of the day, and the morning you are gone, the absence registers within the first hour of sunrise. The chickadees that normally arrive at your feeders 7 to 9 minutes after the kitchen light turns on do not arrive at that window. They cycle past the feeder, they perching nearby branches, and they wait. Researchers at Cornell Lab of Ornithology have documented this exact pattern in supplementary feeding studies. The birds do not abandon the location immediately. They check, and they check again, and the checking itself is what tells you they had built their morning around yours. By the end of the first day, the pattern has already begun to shift. The cardinal that usually appears at dusk near your back window does not pass at the usual time. He does not stop coming, he passes earlier, before the time he would normally check, as if testing whether the variable has changed permanently. The juncos and sparrows that fed in the late afternoon redistribute themselves across the yard, spending less time at the empty feeder and more time at natural food sources. None of this looks dramatic from above, but each of these small adjustments is the yard recalibrating around the new reality that you are not part of today. Point 2. Day 2 and Day 3. The visit pattern collapses. This is where the data becomes unmistakable. By the second and third day, the frequency of visits to your feeder drops by more than half, even if the feeder is still full. This is not because the birds have forgotten the location. It is because they have updated their model. Watching from the perspective of a chickadee, a feeder that was reliable for months has now produced 2 consecutive failures. 2 failures is enough to demote that feeder from primary resource to backup resource. The chickadee does not return less because she has forgotten. She returns less because she has remembered, and the memory now contains a warning. What is striking is what does not change. The birds do not leave the yard. They continue to use the trees, the shrubs, the water sources. Your yard is still their territory. What changes is the specific node in that territory that you represented. You were a high-value, predictable, time-stamped resource, and when you go, your node downgrades while the rest of the territory stays exactly the same. This is why people who come back from a week away often say the yard feels empty, even though it is not. The yard is full. The feeder is the part that has gone quiet, because the birds have temporarily removed it from their daily route. Point 3. They remember you, not your feeder. You. Here's the part that almost nobody understands. Your birds do not simply remember the location of the food. They remember the human attached to it. Research by Dr. John Marsluff at the University of Washington has demonstrated that several backyard species, particularly corvids but also chickadees and titmice, are capable of recognizing specific human faces and remembering individuals for years. They do not need to see the food to recall the person. The face alone is enough to trigger the memory of every interaction associated with that face. This means the bird at your window is not waiting for the seed, she is waiting for you. The visual profile she built of you, the sound of your voice as she spoke to her, the rhythm of your hand when you refilled the feeder, the angle of your shadow as you stepped onto the porch, all of it is stored in a region of her brain that handles long-term social memory. When you are gone, that profile remains active. She is not forgetting you. She is holding the file open and checking it against every human shape that crosses the yard. Point 4. When your absence stretches past a week, a short trip is an interruption. A long absence is a different category. Once you have been gone more than 7 to 10 days, the territory begins to reorganize. The dominant birds at your feeder, the ones who held priority access while you were there, lose that priority because the resource itself has gone unreliable. New birds, lower in the previous hierarchy, begin to test the feeder more aggressively. If the food runs out, they move on. If a neighbor begins feeding, the population shifts toward that yard. There is also a quieter pattern that emerges during long absences, one that almost no one sees, because by definition no one is there to watch it. The birds who knew you best, the ones who had built the tightest routine around your appearance, are the slowest to leave. The chickadee that came to the same branch every morning continues to come to that branch for days after the resource has gone quiet. She does not feed, she perches, she watches the back door, and then she leaves and returns later and watches again. Ornithologists who have studied this behavior in supplementary feeding contexts describe it as expectancy maintenance. The bird is not just remembering, she is actively allocating energy to the possibility that the resource will return. That allocation has a cost, and the fact that she pays it tells you something about how strongly your specific presence was encoded. But the memory of you does not erase. Even after the visit pattern collapses, even after the dominant birds have left for more reliable territories, the individual birds who knew you specifically retain that memory. Studies on chickadee spatial memory have shown that these birds can remember the location of thousands of cached food items for months, and they can remember the humans associated with reliable food sources for at least as long. When you return after 2 weeks, the response is not random. The birds who recognize you respond first. The new birds, the ones who arrived during your absence, respond to nothing because they have no file on you yet. This is why your return often feels uneven. Some birds appear within hours, others take days. You are not imagining the difference. You are watching the old residents recognize you while the new ones do not. Point 5. The moment you come back. Here is what they recognize first. It is not your face from a distance. It is not your voice from inside the house. It is the specific combination of motion and sound that your routine produces. The kitchen light turning on at the right hour, the back door opening with the specific sound it makes, the shape of you walking across the porch at the angle they know. When all of these signals align, the birds who knew you fire what researchers call a recognition response, a sudden increase in activity at the feeder, an approach to purchase closer to the house than they have used in days, a kind of low-frequency vocalization that some ornithologists have begun to describe as a greeting call. This is not anthropomorphism. This is documented behavior. The birds are not happy in the way you are happy, but they are signaling to each other and to you that the reliable resource has returned. And they are doing it within the first 30 minutes of your arrival, often before you have even refilled the feeder, because what triggers the response is not the food. The trigger is you. Point 6. Why some birds still wait. This is the part that is hard to write about without losing the science, but the science is real, and it deserves to be said clearly. Long-lived backyard birds, especially corvids, but also some chickadees and cardinals, can retain memory of a specific human for years. There are documented cases of crows continuing to visit the property of a person who fed them after that person had moved away or passed. The birds did not know the person was gone. They only knew that the rhythm had stopped, and so they kept checking, sometimes for months, sometimes for longer. This is what your birds do when you are gone. In the short term, they recalibrate. In the medium term, they reorganize. In the long term, the ones who knew you keep a record of you that does not disappear just because the feeder is empty. The yard goes on without you, but the file stays open, and every shape that crosses the porch is measured against the one they remember. And here is the part that is the hardest to sit with. The bird does not know you are gone. She only knows the rhythm has stopped. She does not have the concept of a person moving away, or a person no longer being able to come outside, or a person who has passed. What she has is the absence and the memory of what came before the absence. So she checks. She checks the branch. She checks the porch. She checks the window where the shape of you used to appear. And in checking, she is doing the thing that humans most want from the creatures they have loved without being able to say it. She is keeping the door open. Not because she expects anything specific, but because the file is still active, and the file does not close on its own. So the next time you come back from a few days away, watch closely in the first hour after you arrive. Watch the cardinal who lands on the same branch he always uses. Watch the chickadee who comes to the feeder before you have even filled it. Watch the way some birds appear immediately and others take their time. You are not seeing random movement. You are seeing the result of a memory of you that stayed active the entire time you were gone. The yard remembered. They remembered. And now you know what was happening in your absence that you were never there to see. If you have ever come home from a trip and noticed that a specific bird seemed to find you faster than the others, tell me in the comments which species it was. I want to hear the stories. I read every one. I will see you in the next one. Backyard Bird Mind.